My name is Elena Brooks. I'm 23 years old, and my parents called my graduation an embarrassment. They spent a fortune throwing a grand graduation party for my sister, but when it was my turn, they didn't even show up. When I called to ask where they were, my mother laughed and said, "Enjoy your community college degree. We won't be embarrassed with you." So, I smiled and sent them a photo that changed everything. Before I tell you what was in that photo, like this video, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from, because this story still hurts, and I need to know I'm not alone in this world. You know what's funny? I used to think love was supposed to be unconditional, that parents were supposed to support their children no matter what, that family meant showing up, even when it wasn't convenient, even when it wasn't glamorous. I was so naive. Let me tell you about my sister Victoria. God, where do I even start with Victoria? She was everything my parents ever wanted in a daughter. Tall, blonde, effortlessly beautiful. The kind of person who could walk into a room and command attention without even trying. She got into Stanford on a full academic scholarship, graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business administration, and landed a six-figure job at a prestigious consulting firm before she even walked across that stage. And my parents? They were so proud they couldn't contain themselves. They threw her a graduation party that cost more than most people's weddings. I'm talking about a catered event for 200 people at the country club. Professional photographers, a string quartet, champagne fountains, and a speech from my father that lasted 20 minutes about how Victoria was the embodiment of excellence and determination. I remember sitting in the corner that night, watching my parents glow with pride as they showed off their perfect daughter to everyone who would listen. Relatives flew in from across the country. My father's business partners came with their wives. Even our neighbours showed up because my parents had been bragging about Victoria's achievements for months. They rented a projector and played a slideshow of Victoria's accomplishments, baby photos, honour roll certificates, prom queen crown, graduation photos from Stanford, the whole 9 yards. My mother cried actual tears of joy during my father's speech. She kept saying, "This is the proudest day of my life." And me, I was invisible. I served drinks to the guests and smiled politely when people asked, "And what about you, Elena? What are your plans?" My parents would quickly change the subject or make some excuse about how I was still figuring things out. Still figuring things out. At 21 years old, I was apparently still figuring things out, while my sister had her entire life mapped out and executed to perfection. You want to know the truth? I wasn't figuring anything out. I knew exactly what I wanted. I just wasn't good enough for them to care. See, while Victoria was living it up at Stanford, I was attending Riverside Community College, not because I wasn't smart enough for a 4-year university, not because I didn't have dreams or ambitions, but because we couldn't afford to send 2 kids to expensive schools, and Victoria was the investment that would pay off. Those were my father's exact words. Victoria is the investment that will pay off. What was I then? A liability? A disappointment? A reminder of their limited resources and even more limited faith in their younger daughter? I remember the day I got my acceptance letter to UC Berkeley. I was so excited I could barely contain myself. I ran downstairs to show my parents, thinking finally, they would see that I was capable of something great too. My mother looked at the letter for exactly 3 seconds before handing it back to me. "That's nice, honey, but we've already committed to Victoria's education. Community college will give you the same basic credits for a fraction of the cost." My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. "It's practical, Elena. You'll figure out what you want to do with your life, and then we can talk about transferring." But we never talked about transferring, because I wasn't worth the conversation. So I went to Riverside Community College, and I kept my mouth shut about how it felt to watch my parents beam with pride when people asked about Victoria, while simultaneously watching them change the subject when anyone asked about me. Do you know what it's like to feel invisible in your own family? To sit at the dinner table and listen to your parents discuss your sister's internships and job prospects while treating your education like it's some kind of placeholder until you figure out what you want to be when you grow up? It's soul-crushing. It's a special kind of pain that eats away at you from the inside, making you question everything about yourself. Am I not smart enough? Am I not trying hard enough? Am I just not worth their time and attention? I started to believe I wasn't worth much of anything. But here's the thing about being underestimated and ignored: it teaches you to rely on yourself. It teaches you that if you want something in this life, you better be prepared to fight for it alone, because no one else is coming to save you. So that's exactly what I did. While my parents were busy planning Victoria's future and celebrating her every achievement, I was quietly building something they never bothered to ask about. I was working with my professors on a project that would change everything, but they never asked about my classes, my grades, my projects, or my dreams. They never asked because they never cared. And if you're watching this and you know what that feels like, please comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I need to know there are other people out there who understand this kind of pain, because some days it still feels like I'm suffocating under the weight of their indifference. I threw myself into my studies like my life depended on it. Maybe because it did. I took every computer science class Riverside offered, spent countless hours in the lab, and started working on independent projects that most students wouldn't attempt until their senior year at a 4-year university. My professors noticed. Dr. Martinez, who taught advanced programming, started giving me extra assignments because I finished the regular coursework too quickly. Dr. Chen, who taught data structures, invited me to work on research projects with graduate students from the nearby university. But when I tried to share these small victories with my parents, they would nod politely and then immediately pivot to whatever Victoria was doing. That's nice, Elena. Did we tell you Victoria got promoted again? She's the youngest associate in her firm's history. Everything was about Victoria. Every conversation, every family gathering, every holiday dinner. Victoria this, Victoria that. Victoria's boyfriend, who came from a good family. Victoria's apartment in the city. Victoria's salary. Victoria's future. I started to wonder if my parents even remembered they had another daughter. The worst part wasn't just the neglect. It was the active shame they felt about my choices. When relatives or family friends asked about me, my parents would get this look on their faces like someone had just asked them to explain a particularly embarrassing medical condition. Elena's at community college, they would say, in the same tone you might use to say, Elena has a persistent rash. They were embarrassed by me. Their own daughter. I was an inconvenience, a disappointment, a constant reminder that not everything in their perfect little world went according to plan. I remember my aunt asking my mother about my major at Thanksgiving dinner last year. My mother actually sighed before answering. She's studying computer science. At Riverside. 1. The way she said, at Riverside, made it sound like I was serving time in prison. My aunt, trying to be supportive, said, "Oh, that's wonderful. Technology is such a growing field." And my mother, my own mother, actually laughed. Not a happy laugh. A bitter, almost mocking laugh. Well, we'll see if she sticks with it. Elena's still trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life. I was sitting right there. Right there. They were talking about me like I was invisible. Like I was some kind of failed experiment they were still trying to fix. That's when I stopped trying to include them in my life. If they wanted to pretend I didn't exist, fine. I would give them exactly what they wanted. I stopped telling them about my grades, stopped mentioning my projects, stopped trying to get their attention or approval. I focused on my work and let them live in their Victoria-obsessed bubble. And you know what? It was liberating, in the most heartbreaking way possible. For 2 years, I worked in silence. I collaborated with professors on cutting-edge research. I developed applications that caught the attention of tech companies. I built a portfolio that would make most computer science graduates from prestigious universities jealous. But my parents never asked to see any of it. They never asked about my future plans, my career goals, or my dreams. As far as they were concerned, I was just killing time at community college until I figured out what I really wanted to do with my life. The irony is that I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to prove that they were wrong about me. I wanted to show them that their embarrassing community college daughter was capable of things they never dreamed possible. I wanted to make them regret every dismissive comment, every ignored achievement, every time they chose Victoria over me. But mostly, I just wanted them to see me, really see me, not as a disappointment or a backup plan or a mistake, but as their daughter who had been working her ass off to make something of herself despite their complete lack of support. I was naive to think they would ever see me that way. As graduation approached, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, this would be the moment they finally recognized what I had accomplished. Maybe they would realize that community college didn't mean I was settling for less. It meant I was smart enough to get an excellent education without drowning in debt. Maybe they would be proud of me. I was so stupid to believe that. 3 weeks before graduation, Victoria announced she was getting engaged to her boyfriend Marcus. He's exactly the kind of man my parents always dreamed their daughter would marry. Ivy League education, family money, a jaw that could cut glass, and a trust fund that could fund a small country. The engagement party planning started immediately. My mother turned into a wedding planning tornado, calling vendors and venues, and throwing around numbers that made my head spin. The engagement party alone was going to cost more than my entire education. Meanwhile, I mentioned that my graduation ceremony was in 2 weeks, and asked if they wanted me to order them tickets. My father looked at me like I had just asked him to attend a community theatre production of a play no one had ever heard of. "Oh, Elena, you know how busy we are with Victoria's engagement party. Maybe we can take you out to dinner afterward to celebrate." Maybe they could take me out to dinner afterward. Not we'll be there to watch you walk across the stage. Not we're so proud of you for finishing your degree. Not even we'll try to make it work. Maybe we can take you out to dinner afterward. Like my graduation was an afterthought. Like 2 years of hard work and dedication deserved a participation trophy dinner if they could fit it into their busy schedule of planning Victoria's engagement party. I felt something break inside my chest. Something that had been hanging on by a thread for years finally snapped. "Never mind," I told them. "Don't worry about it." My mother looked relieved. "Oh good. I'm glad you understand. This engagement party is just so important, and there are so many details to coordinate. So many details to coordinate for Victoria. Always Victoria." I went to my room and cried for the first time in months. Not the quiet, careful tears I had learned to shed in private. I'm talking about ugly, gut-wrenching sobs that came from somewhere so deep I didn't know it existed. I was graduating with honours. I was graduating with a 4 gigapascals. I was graduating with job offers from 3 different tech companies. I was graduating with something that would change my family's financial situation forever. But they wouldn't be there to see it, because Victoria's engagement party was more important. If you've ever felt like the forgotten child, like your achievements don't matter because they don't fit your family's definition of success, please comment invisible below. I need to know I'm not alone in this feeling, because it's eating me alive, even as I tell this story. I decided that morning that I was done trying to earn their love and recognition. I was done hoping they would see me as more than their disappointing younger daughter. I was done caring about their approval. But I wasn't done with my plan for revenge. The week before graduation, I got a phone call that changed everything. Dr. Chen called me into his office on a Friday afternoon, and the look on his face was so serious I thought I was in trouble. "Elena," he said, "I need to show you something." He pulled out a thick folder and set it on his desk. "The project you've been working on for the past year, the machine learning algorithm for predictive data analysis. It's been reviewed by some people at the university." My heart started pounding. I had been working on this algorithm as part of an independent study, pouring every spare moment into perfecting the code and testing its applications. It was my baby, the thing I was most proud of in my academic career. "They want to buy it," Dr. Chen continued. "The university wants to license your algorithm and use it as the foundation for a new research center focused on predictive analytics." I stared at him, not quite processing what he was saying. "Elena, they're prepared to offer you $2.5 million for the licensing rights, plus a percentage of any future profits from applications developed using your algorithm." The room started spinning. $2.5 million. $2.5 million. "But that's not all," Dr. Chen said. "And I couldn't imagine what else there could be. They want to offer you a full scholarship to complete your bachelor's degree at the university, followed by a guaranteed spot in their graduate program, with full funding for your master's and PhD. I couldn't speak. I literally could not form words. "Elena, this algorithm you developed, it's revolutionary. You've created something that could transform how we approach data analysis, in fields ranging from medicine to environmental science to economics. You're 23 years old and you've just solved a problem that PhD researchers have been working on for years." I started crying right there in his office. Not sad tears this time. Tears of relief and vindication and pure, overwhelming joy. All those nights I spent in the computer lab while my parents were planning Victoria's future. All those hours I spent coding while they were bragging about Victoria's achievements. All that time I spent building something beautiful while they treated me like an embarrassment. It had all led to this moment. "There is one condition," Dr. Chen said. "The university wants to announce the partnership at graduation. They want you to be honored as their youngest research partner in the school's history. There will be media coverage, university officials, potential investors in attendance." I nodded, still trying to process the magnitude of what was happening. "Elena," Dr. Chen said gently, "your parents should be there for this. This is going to be a very big deal." My parents. Right. The parents who couldn't be bothered to attend their daughter's graduation because Victoria's engagement party was more important. "I'll let them know," I told him. But I had no intention of letting them know. They made their choice. They chose Victoria's engagement party over my graduation. They chose to be embarrassed by my community college degree rather than proud of my accomplishments. So I would let them live with that choice. Graduation day arrived, and I woke up alone in my apartment. No congratulatory texts from my parents. No flowers. No proud family members getting ready to watch me walk across the stage. Just me, my cap and gown, and a secret that was about to change everything. I got dressed carefully, taking my time, with my makeup and hair. Not because I was trying to look pretty for my family, they wouldn't be there to see me anyway, but because I knew there would be photographers at the ceremony, university officials, media coverage. I wanted to look like the successful researcher I was about to become, not like the community college embarrassment my parents saw me as. I drove to the ceremony alone, parked alone, and walked into the building alone. Other graduates were surrounded by proud families, taking photos and offering encouragement. Parents were crying happy tears and telling their kids how proud they were. And me? I checked my phone one more time, hoping against hope that maybe my parents had changed their minds. Maybe they realized they were making a mistake. Maybe they were on their way. Nothing. I found my seat in the graduate section and watched the auditorium fill up with families. Empty chairs where my parents should have been sitting. Empty space where my support system should have existed. That's when the anger really hit me. Not sadness this time. Pure, white-hot rage. They were missing the most important day of my academic life because Victoria's engagement party was more important. They were choosing to be embarrassed by their daughter's community college degree instead of celebrating her achievements. Fine. Let them be embarrassed. Let them miss this moment. Let them explain to people why they weren't at their daughter's graduation. The ceremony began, and I tried to focus on the speeches and the recognition of various student achievements. But all I could think about was that empty space where my family should have been. Halfway through the ceremony, Dr. Chen approached the podium for a special announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce a very special graduate today. Elena Brooks has not only excelled academically during her time at Riverside Community College, but she has also developed a groundbreaking machine learning algorithm that has caught the attention of researchers and tech companies across the country. I felt every eye in the auditorium turn to me. The anger in my chest started mixing with something else, pride. Miss Brooks has been selected as the university's newest research partner, and her algorithm has been licensed for $2.5 million to fund the establishment of a new predictive analytics research center. The auditorium erupted in applause. People were standing, professors were cheering, other students were looking at me with amazement and respect, and my parents weren't there to see any of it. Dr. Chen continued. Miss Brooks represents everything we hope to achieve in education: innovation, dedication, and the courage to pursue groundbreaking research regardless of the institutional setting. She proves that excellence can emerge from any environment when students are willing to work hard and think creatively. They called me to the stage to receive a special recognition award. As I walked up there, I thought about every time my parents had dismissed my achievements. Every time they had been embarrassed by my choice to attend community college. Every time they had made me feel like I was settling for less. I wasn't settling for less. I was achieving more than they ever dreamed possible. After the ceremony, I was surrounded by reporters, university officials, and other students wanting to congratulate me. Local news stations wanted interviews. University administrators wanted to discuss my future research opportunities. And through it all, I kept checking my phone, hoping my parents would call to congratulate me or ask how the ceremony went. Nothing. I guess Victoria's engagement party was more important than their daughter making local news for her academic achievements. That evening, I sat in my apartment, looking at the official licensing agreement and the check for $2.5 million. $2.5 million for work I had done, while my parents thought I was just figuring things out at community college. I took a photo of myself holding the check, making sure the amount was clearly visible. Then I opened up our family group chat, the one where my parents constantly shared updates about Victoria's achievements and career milestones. I posted the photo, with no caption, no explanation, just me, smiling, holding a check for $2.5 million. And then I waited. My phone started ringing within minutes. First my mother, then my father, then my mother again. Text messages started flooding in. Elena, what is this? Is this real? Why didn't you tell us? We need to talk immediately. This changes everything. This changes everything. That's what my mother texted me. Not we're proud of you. Not we're sorry we missed your graduation. Not we should have been there to support you. This changes everything. Like my worth as their daughter was directly tied to the dollar amount on that check. The calls kept coming. Voicemail after voicemail. Text after text. Suddenly, everyone in my family wanted to talk to me. Suddenly, my achievements mattered. But you know what? I didn't answer. Not that night. Not the next day. Not the day after that. Let them wonder. Let them panic. Let them realize what it feels like to be ignored by someone you're supposed to love unconditionally. For 3 days, they called non-stop. My phone was buzzing constantly with calls and texts from my parents, Victoria, aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Word was spreading through the family that the embarrassing community college daughter had just signed a multi-million-dollar deal. The tone of their messages evolved over those 3 days. At first, they were demanding answers. Then they became pleading, then desperate. Elena, please call us back. We need to understand what happened. This is incredible news. And we want to celebrate with you. We want to celebrate with you. Now they want to celebrate with me. Where was that energy on graduation day? Where was that enthusiasm when I was working 18-hour days in the computer lab? Where was that pride when I was achieving academic honors semester after semester? Oh, right. They were too busy being embarrassed by their community college daughter to notice that she was building something extraordinary. On the 4th day, my mother left a voicemail that almost broke my resolve. Elena, sweetheart, I don't understand why you're not answering our calls. We love you so much, and we're so proud of what you've accomplished. I know we missed your graduation, but we had no idea how important it was. If we had known about this research project, about this achievement, of course we would have been there. Please call us back. We want to make this right. If we had known how important it was. If we had known. They would have been there if they knew I was receiving $2.5 million. But they couldn't be bothered to show up to support their daughter's graduation from community college. That's when I knew nothing had really changed. They weren't proud of me. They were proud of the money. They weren't sorry they missed my graduation. They were sorry they missed the opportunity to bask in reflected glory. They were still the same people who had spent years making me feel invisible and worthless. The only difference was that now I had something they wanted to be associated with. I finally called them back on day 5. My mother answered on the first ring, and I could hear the relief in her voice. Elena, oh my God, sweetheart, we've been so worried. Why didn't you tell us about this incredible opportunity? We're so proud of you. Proud of me. Right, you're proud of me? I asked quietly. Of course we are. This is amazing. Our daughter, the millionaire researcher. We can't wait to tell everyone about your success. Our daughter, the millionaire researcher. Not our daughter, the hard-working student. Not our daughter, the dedicated researcher. Our daughter, the millionaire. Mom, I said, where were you on graduation day? There was a long pause. Elena, you know we were dealing with Victoria's engagement party. We explained this to you. You explained that Victoria's party was more important than my graduation. That's not what we meant. We just didn't realize how significant your graduation was going to be. It was significant because it was my graduation. It was significant because I worked my ass off for 2 years to earn that degree. It was significant because I'm your daughter and I needed you there. Another pause. Elena, we're sorry. We made a mistake. But we're here now. We want to celebrate your success. And that's when I realized that nothing I could say would make them understand what they had done to me. They weren't sorry they missed my graduation. They were sorry they missed the photo opportunity. They weren't apologizing for years of treating me like an embarrassment. They were apologizing for missing out on my moment of financial success. They still didn't see me. They saw dollar signs. If you've ever had family members suddenly show interest in your life only after you achieve something that benefited them, comment to late below. I need to know there are other people who understand this particular kind of betrayal. You know what, Mum? I said. You taught me something really important over the years. What's that, sweetheart? You taught me that love is conditional. You taught me that my worth as your daughter is directly tied to my ability to make you proud. You taught me that if I'm not living up to your expectations, I'm not worth your time or attention. Elena, that's not true. It is true. For 2 years, you treated my education like a joke. You were embarrassed to tell people I was attending community college. You missed my graduation because Victoria's engagement party was more important. You never once asked about my classes, my projects, my goals, or my dreams. I took a breath and continued. But you know what else you taught me? You taught me that I don't need your approval to be successful. You taught me that I'm capable of achieving incredible things, even without your support. You taught me that I'm stronger than I ever knew. Elena, please, And most importantly, you taught me that people who only love you when you're useful to them don't really love you at all. I hung up the phone. They called back immediately. I didn't answer. They texted. They called. They left voicemails. Victoria even reached out, suddenly wanting to reconnect and celebrate my success. But I was done. I was done trying to earn their love. I was done hoping they would see me as more than their disappointing younger daughter. I was done caring about their approval. I had $2.5 million, a full scholarship to complete my education, and a guaranteed spot in a graduate program that would set me up for life. I had achieved everything I ever dreamed of, and I did it without their help. More importantly, I did it despite their constant discouragement and dismissal. They wanted to celebrate my success now. Where were they when I needed celebrating? They wanted to be proud of me now. Where was that pride when I was working 18-hour days in the computer lab? They wanted to love me now. Where was that love when I was sitting alone at Victoria's graduation party, serving drinks to guests who treated me like invisible help? It was too late. Years too late. The money didn't change who I was. It didn't change my work ethic, my values, or my character. But it changed how they saw me, and that told me everything I needed to know about what their love was really worth. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail from my parents. A real letter. Not a text or email. My mother's handwriting on expensive stationery. "Dear Elena," it began. "We know you're angry with us, and we understand why. We made mistakes. We should have been at your graduation. We should have supported your education more. We should have shown you how proud we are of your accomplishments. We're sorry." The letter went on for 3 pages. They talked about how they had always loved me, but hadn't known how to show it. They said they were intimidated by my intelligence, and didn't know how to relate to my interests. They promised to do better, to be better parents, to make up for lost time. It was the kind of letter I had dreamed of receiving for years, the validation I had been desperate for, the acknowledgement that they had failed me, and the promise that things would be different. And you know what I felt when I read it? Nothing. It was too late for letters, too late for apologies, too late for promises to do better. They had shown me who they really were over the course of years. They had prioritized Victoria consistently and continuously. They had treated my achievements as embarrassments, and my dreams as inconsequential. One letter couldn't undo years of damage. One apology couldn't heal the wounds they had inflicted. One promise couldn't rebuild the trust they had destroyed. I wrote them back. A short note, just a few lines. "Thank you for your letter. I appreciate the apology, but I need you to understand something. You didn't just miss my graduation. You missed my entire academic journey. You missed years of hard work, dedication, and achievement. You missed the opportunity to support your daughter when she needed you most. The money didn't make me worthy of your love and pride. I was always worthy of those things. The fact that you only recognized my worth after I became financially successful tells me everything I need to know about what matters to you. I hope you can learn to love Victoria for who she is, not just for what she achieves. She deserves better than conditional love, based on meeting your expectations. I wish you all the best, but I won't be participating in this family anymore. You taught me that I'm capable of incredible things on my own, and that's exactly how I plan to live my life. Take care." I signed it simply, Elena. Not love, Elena, or your daughter, Elena. Just Elena. Because that's what I was to them, just Elena. The daughter who wasn't worth showing up for until she had something they wanted to be associated with. I sent the letter and blocked their numbers, changed my email address, moved to a new apartment across town, started fresh. And you know what? For the first time in my life, I felt free. Free from their expectations and disappointments. Free from constantly trying to earn their love and approval. Free from feeling like I had to prove my worth to people who should have loved me unconditionally. I threw myself into my research with the university. I completed my bachelor's degree with highest honors. I started my master's program with full funding and a research assistantship that paid more than most people's full-time jobs. My algorithm became the foundation for breakthrough research in multiple fields. Medical researchers used it to predict disease outbreaks. Environmental scientists used it to model climate change impacts. Economists used it to forecast market trends. I was invited to speak at conferences around the world. I published papers in prestigious journals. I was featured on the cover of technology magazines as one of the rising stars in artificial intelligence research. And through it all, I never heard from my parents again. No attempts to reach out through relatives. No letters sent to my old address. No social media messages. They had gotten the message loud and clear. Their daughter was done with them. I'm not going to pretend it didn't hurt. There were nights when I missed having a family. Moments when I wanted to share my successes with people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Times when I wondered if I had been too harsh, too unforgiving. But then I would remember graduation day. I would remember sitting in that auditorium alone while my parents chose Victoria's engagement party over my achievement. I would remember the years of being treated like an embarrassment, like a disappointment, like the daughter who wasn't worth their time or attention. And I would remember that they only wanted me back after I had something they could benefit from. That's not love. That's opportunism. Real parents show up for their children even when there's nothing in it for them. Real parents are proud of their children's efforts, not just their outcomes. Real parents love their children for who they are, not for what they can provide. My parents taught me that they weren't real parents. At least, not to me. So I built a new family. Professors who mentored me and celebrated my successes. Fellow researchers who collaborated with me and supported my goals. Friends who showed up for the important moments in my life without needing a financial incentive. People who saw me for who I was and valued me for my mind, my work ethic, my character, and my potential, not for my bank account or my ability to make them look good. I learned that family isn't just about blood relations. Family is about people who show up for you consistently, who support you unconditionally, who celebrate your victories and comfort you during defeats. My biological family failed that test spectacularly, but my chosen family passed with flying colors. 3 years later, I completed my master's degree and was accepted into a PhD program at MIT with full funding and a research position that came with a 6-figure salary. My work in predictive analytics had caught the attention of tech companies around the world, and I had multiple job offers before I even graduated. I was financially secure, academically successful, and professionally respected. Everything my parents had wanted for Victoria, I had achieved on my own, without their support, without their approval, and without their love. The irony wasn't lost on me. The daughter they were embarrassed by had become more successful than the daughter they were proud of. The community college student they dismissed had achieved more than the Stanford graduate they celebrated. But it wasn't about competition with Victoria. It never was. Victoria was just doing her best with the support and encouragement she received. She was living up to the expectations placed on her and following the path laid out for her. I wasn't angry with Victoria. I was angry with parents who thought love should be rationed based on achievement, and that support should be conditional on meeting their definition of success. I was angry with parents who taught one daughter she was valuable and the other daughter she was an embarrassment. I was angry with parents who missed the most important moments in my life because they couldn't see past their own shallow priorities. But mostly, I was angry with myself for taking so long to realize that their love was never worth fighting for in the first place. If you've ever had to choose between toxic family relationships and your own peace of mind, comment, "Chose peace," below. It's one of the hardest decisions anyone can make, but sometimes it's the only way to heal. Now, here I am, Dr. Elena Brooks, PhD candidate at MIT, published researcher, millionaire entrepreneur, and completely estranged from the people who brought me into this world. Some people think I was too harsh. They tell me family is everything, that I should forgive and forget, that holding grudges only hurts me in the long run. But here's what those people don't understand. Forgiveness doesn't mean accepting toxic behavior. Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing people to continue hurting you. Forgiveness doesn't mean sacrificing your own well-being to maintain relationships with people who don't value you. I forgave my parents for being unable to love me the way I needed to be loved. But I didn't forget the lessons they taught me about my own strength and resilience. I forgave them for missing my graduation, but I didn't forget that they showed me exactly where I stood in their priorities. I forgave them for years of dismissing my achievements, but I didn't forget that they taught me to find validation from within, rather than from external sources. Forgiveness and boundaries can coexist. You can forgive someone for hurting you while still choosing to protect yourself from future harm. That's what I did. I forgave them and moved on without them. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if they had shown up to my graduation, if they had supported my education from the beginning, if they had been proud of me before I had money to show for my efforts. Would we have a relationship today? Would I be sharing my successes with them instead of with strangers on the internet? Maybe, but probably not. Because people don't change their fundamental values overnight. Parents who love conditionally don't suddenly learn to love unconditionally. People who only see your worth when you have something to offer them don't spontaneously develop the ability to see your inherent value. My parents showed me who they were over the course of years. I believed them, and when they tried to show me something different after I became successful, I recognized it for what it was. A performance designed to get them back into my good graces, so they could benefit from my success. I wasn't interested in being anyone's lottery ticket or bragging rights. I had worked too hard and come too far to accept crumbs of conditional love from people who should have loved me unconditionally all along. So here's where I am now. Successful, independent, financially secure, and completely at peace with my decision to cut toxic people out of my life, even if those people share my DNA. I have a career I love, colleagues who respect me, friends who value me, and a future full of possibilities. I have everything I ever wanted, and I got it all without compromising my integrity or accepting less than I deserved. My parents taught me that I wasn't worth showing up for, so I taught them what it feels like to be irrelevant. They wanted to celebrate my success after the fact? Too late. They wanted to be proud of me retroactively? Not interested. They wanted a relationship with me once I had something to offer them? Not happening. I learned to love myself enough to walk away from people who couldn't love me properly. I learned to value myself enough to demand better treatment, even from family members. I learned to build a life so full of genuine love and support that their conditional affection became irrelevant. That's my revenge. Not anger or hatred or attempts to hurt them back. Simply living a life so beautiful and fulfilling that their absence doesn't create a void. Simply becoming so successful and happy that their approval is no longer necessary for my self-worth. Simply proving that the daughter they were embarrassed by was capable of extraordinary things, with or without their support. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or treated like you weren't good enough, I hope my story gives you permission to prove them wrong, not for their benefit, but for your own. Build something beautiful, achieve something extraordinary, become someone remarkable. And if the people who should have supported you along the way want to suddenly celebrate your success, remember that you don't owe them access to the life they didn't help you build. You don't owe anyone a relationship just because you share blood. You don't owe anyone forgiveness just because they apologize. You don't owe anyone a second chance just because they promise to do better. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself happiness. You owe yourself the kind of love you were always worthy of receiving. Sometimes that means walking away from people who can't or won't love you properly, even if those people are your parents. It's painful. It's complicated. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do, but it's also liberating. It's empowering. It's the first step toward building the kind of life you actually deserve. So if you're watching this, and you recognize yourself in my story, know that you're not alone. Know that you're worthy of better treatment. Know that you have the power to build a beautiful life even if the people who are supposed to support you have failed you. And know that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well without them. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more about my journey. Comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I read every single comment, and I'm building a community of people who understand what it's like to overcome family dysfunction and build success on your own terms. And if you've ever been the forgotten child, the dismissed dreamer, or the family disappointment who proved everyone wrong, comment, still standing, below. Let's celebrate each other's strength and resilience. Because we're not just surviving our stories, we're rewriting them. And that's the most powerful revenge of all.